Good morning, students. Today, before starting our period, let us revise what we have learned yesterday. Yesterday, we have seen that our little Franz has reached to the school, and he came to know there that in the school there will be no more teaching of French language. The Persians have banned French language in the school, and instead, there they will teach German language. In fact, nothing will be taught in French language, and he was aghast. He was shocked and dumbstruck to know that. It was kind of thunderclap for him. And after that, he had also seen that the entire atmosphere in the school was very quiet and still, very silent, as if it is a Sunday morning and nobody is there. Along with that, uh, everybody was so serious and sad. The another surprising thing that he had seen, the villagers on the back benches with the books, with the primer of French, and Yam Hamel too had put on his special dress because it was last lesson. So, in the honor and the respect of their country, in the honor and respect of their teacher, his service for nearly 40 years, these villagers had come into the school to pay respect, and they regret that they have not learned, and they feel very bad. Here we stopped yesterday. Let us continue our lesson. So to continue with our next part of lesson, let us read the next paragraph. Go through the paragraph. While I was thinking of all this, I hope that you remember the last part. What he was thinking. That he was thinking that why these villagers were in the school. Why the school was so serious and solemn. Why the teacher has put his special dress, and why the French language is banned. Now he wanted to learn. Earlier he didn't want to learn. Earlier he wanted to bunk the class, go to the sharp for sliding, go to the woods to seek the bird's egg. But now he doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want. He want to learn in the school. He want to learn everything. Just now he had started learning how to write. He doesn't want to give up his books. So he was thinking of all these things. So that is why he, says, while I was thinking all of this, I heard my name called. And for what his name called? It was my turn to recite. Remember, children, that his teacher Yam Hamel was going to ask him the rules of participles. And for that, his name was called. See what he thinks now. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule of participles all through, very loud and clear, and without one mistake? He is in regret. He is feeling bad, very bad. And children, he did not prepare anything and he did not know anything about the rules of participles. And that is why now these rules of participle, they seems to be dreadful today. And it is the last lesson. He is supposed to recite the participles without any mistake, at least in the last lesson. But alas, he is not prepared. He can't. And he is now fearful. What if he could not recite the rules of participle clearly and loudly without mistake? He wished that he should recite it without mistake. He should recite it very loudly and clearly. But he did not prepare it. He is not prepared. And see what he says next. But I got mixed up. He started, but he got confused in between. I got mixed up, not in between. I got mixed up on the first words. In the very beginning, he got confused and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. So, without saying anything, bending his head, He stood there holding his desk. His heart was beating very fast. He was feeling very guilty. Even in the last lesson, he could not recite the rules of participles. He could not answer. So this guilty feeling made him very emotional. And he was so embarrassed. He was feeling so ashamed that he could not even look up. He was the teacher. His head was down with the shame. So, dear students, no, nobody knows what comes in the next moment. He had never thought this moment would come, that he had to attend the last lesson suddenly. Now, but it is all useless. Now he had no chance to learn it. He has no scope for learning because there is no teacher, and he will not, learn French in the school anymore. Now see the next para. I heard Hamel say to me, "I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said it to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out." Ah, that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will have to write to say to you, how is it you to pretend to be Frenchman, and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language, but you are not the worst, poor little fans. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. What a sensible response from the teacher. Young Hamel knew that. Now there is no use of saying anything. There is no use of scolding Young Hamel. Franz, and even there is no need also, because already Franz was feeling bad. Franz was feeling guilty about it, that he could not recite, that he did not prepare, and his teacher is reiterating the fact that he has learned, the lesson that he has learned today, lesson not of the books. See how it is, he says. Every day we have said ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time, isn't it? Even we people also always, thinks that we can do it later, we can do it later. A lot of time is there. But here in this situation, France has come in the situation, in the crucial time, that there is no time at all now. Earlier, he has postponed the learning for the next day. Next day, I will learn it tomorrow. And students, tomorrow never arrives. Does it? Because every next day, the tomorrow will be shifted to the following day. So tomorrow never comes. And we go on delaying the things. That's called as procrastination. Everybody, most of the people have the habit of procrastinating the things. Means putting the work, taking the work for the next day, thinking that we can do it later, we can do it later. Because we take the things lightly, like France and like many others. And the result is, see what the teacher says, and now we see where we have come out. Now see the result. Now there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow, there is no learning. That's a great trouble with Alsace. Tomorrow onward, there will be no learning. The schools are closed for the French language. Alsace puts up learning till tomorrow. Tomorrow you cannot learn now the rules of participle. Tomorrow you cannot learn anything about French language in the school. Now the time is up. Time is over. You don't have time. Though you have said many times earlier, there is a plenty of time. There is no time. And that's why that apprentice also was saying that there is a plenty of time to go to school. Sarcastically, he mentioned it. Okay. However, let us see the next line. Now, those fellows out there, whose fellows these are, the Persian soldiers out drilling there, and they will have the right to say to you, every right to say that, how is it? You pretend to be a Frenchman, you call yourself Frenchman, and neither you can speak it and nor you can write it. Your own language. How can you call yourself Frenchman when you don't know how to write and how to speak your language, your own language? The Persian soldiers will make fun of you now. Persian soldiers will, claim that you're not Frenchman. Now they will teach you German, and maybe they will call you German. They will make you German. They will force you to be German. They will force you to be the Persian. This is what he made France and other children there and the villagers there realized. Now you cannot be the Frenchman. You will be forced to Persians. The cultural hegemony, this linguistic chauvinism, this education system. In the beginning, in the introduction, we have learned that through this cultural hegemony, through this colonialism policy practices, the things could change drastically. This education that is, this education that they are going to give in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine now can make these citizens of Alsace and Lorraine the cultural slaves to the Persians, and gradually, eventually, after many years, after few years, these people may forget their own language, may forget that they were Frenchmen once upon a time. Because education is such a weapon, powerful weapon that can bring the change. So here, now, this is what the result. This is where we have come out. So the last line in the paragraph, what he says, but you are not the worst, poor little France. When he is talking to France now, he is saying to France, it does not mean only France. What he said, the last line, the most important line here, that, while analyzing these things, that why this day has come, why this last lesson has come, why we could not learn anything before. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with, he says. We all, this, includes everybody, not only not only his student fans or the children, sitting in the classroom. He includes himself. He includes the villagers. He includes the parents, all the people living in Alsace-Lorraine. So he take them all, including himself. And he says that they have a great deal to reproach. Reproach, great deal means great scope. And reproach means to criticize, to find fault with themselves. Yes, it's not only France that was at fault. It was not only, other children, other student to have fault with. So we all are at blame. We all are at fault. Let us go to the next paragraph. This is the next paragraph. See how he, continues his statement that when he says that we all have great deal of to reproach ourselves with. See what he says. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. He talked about the parents first. They were not anxious to have you learn, to have these children learn. The parents were, didn't want to learn, didn't want their children should learn. They were not careful. They wanted it. Uh, you know, which parent doesn't want their children should learn? But they were not enough careful. They were not that serious. They were not that anxious to have their children learn. And how, see what he says, they prefer to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have little more money. Sometimes they needed little more money, so they take their children to the farms and to the mills for the work. And out of that, they could earn a little more money. So they did not think about their education at that time. They did not think about the school. So that is why here Yamham and the teacher is saying that your parents were also at blame. They were also at fault. They were not careful and serious about sending you into the school, about your learning in the school, or about your study in the school, about your education. Instead, they take you to the mills and the farms for work. And I see, he comes to himself. And I see what he said. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? See, he did not, exempt himself. He also has introspected and exposed himself that many a times he asked his students, he asked his children in the schools to water his garden, to water his plants, instead of taking their classes, instead of teaching them. And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? And whenever M. Hamel wanted to go for fishing, he used to give holiday to the students. So at the same time, even the teachers like M. Hamel, they were also at faults. That they were not teaching, they were not taking lessons. Instead, they were giving holidays. Instead, they were giving other works to the students. So he did not excuse himself also. Very boldly, he is, taking the blame on himself also. He talks of parents, he talks of himself. Even he is thinking of, everybody in the village, everyone sitting there on the backbenches or everyone living there have the same casual attitude, have the same careless attitude about the learning, about their work, about education. So that is why he says that, I repeat, he says that we all have great, I'm sorry, he says that we have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. So everybody has it at blame. Now going to the next paragraph, let us read it. Uh, then from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. See, the most important part in this chapter about the language that tells us the importance of language. He started with praising the language, uh, talking about his language, giving honor about his language. He said that is the French language, their mother tongue. Their language is most beautiful language in the world. However, everybody thinks that their language is beautiful.
English people think that their language is most beautiful. We Indians think that our mother tongue, you know, maybe Hindi or maybe Marathi. So Marathi people will always say the most beautiful language in the world is Marathi. Hindi people will say the most beautiful language in the world is. That's the love that we have towards our language. That's the love towards our language. But it is not linguistic chauvinism. Linguistic chauvinism, you know, crosses this idea. When this love becomes excessive, this pride of language that becomes excessive and that surpasses to hate other language, to suppress other language, to so, when you want your language to be imposed on others, to take over others, because the some other language is inferior one, some other language is not worthy one and deserving one, then it becomes linguistic chauvinism. But your love towards your language cannot be the linguistic chauvinism. So here William Hamel starts with saying that his French language was one of the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest one, the most logical one, and see, it's not applicable to the French language only. What he said next, he said that we must guard it among us and never forget it. We must guard our mother tongue. In this case, he's saying to the villagers, he's saying to the children that they must guard their language among them and never forget it. Because when people are enslaved, now see, the people of Alsace and Lorraine district of France are enslaved by the Persians. So he's reiterating, he's stressing that when people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. Now these people are prison. The people of Alsace and Lorraine are prison. And he's giving the idea that as long as you hold fast to your language is key to the prison. You can free yourself. You can throw away the shackles of the enslavement, slavery. You can break the chain. You can break the prison with the key of the language. Now, students, language is that important. When you have one common thing among you that makes you connected with each other, see our language, Hindi, national language, our national language, Hindi language, that makes us connected and it's emotionally bonded, emotionally attached. So whenever the question comes of national integrity, Hindi language is promoted. Why? Because this language can connect all the people of India together. In case of the states, this Marathi language connects the Marathi people. The same way, any language, that linguistic community get connected emotionally, very in a very strong way. So it is very difficult to break this bond of connection if you have the language between. But when you forget the language, when you could not guard and protect your language, maybe that integrity, maybe that connection, that bond, that attachment could break. You will lose that integrity when you could not guard your language, when you could not, when you forget your language. So remember these words of M. Hamel, students. We must guard our language among us. We must not forget it because it is key to the prison whenever we are enslaved, when the situation comes. That's why you know, everybody says that Hindi has played a great role in the freedom struggle of India, in the freedom fight of India. Okay, let us go towards the next part. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed to be so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. How beautifully narrated. Now the grammar lesson started. And when he was teaching grammar, French grammar, Franz was amazed to see that how well he understood. Generally, no, the students' complaint is always there that they do not understand what teachers teaches because they do not feel interest in that, because they were not attentive at the time of teaching, because they don't like it. Today, in case of France, France was full of attention. France wanted to learn everything that was going to be taught. And when he was attentive, for him, it seemed so easy that he could understand it very well. And it never happened before. So he realized that he was never attentive like this. He was never interested like this. And even the teacher, he felt that perhaps perhaps he also had not taught and explained everything with such a great patience as he was listening carefully. Both way, on the both sides. Teacher with great patience teaching, and the students with great attention, with great care, they were listening. And again he says that it seems that this man, his teacher, wanted to give everything that he knew about French language, everything about the French grammar at once, in one stroke, before going out. Because tomorrow he will not be there. Tomorrow he will leave his country. And before going that, he wanted to give these children, give these villagers everything he knew about French. It seems. So these are some points you should remember, that language is key to prison because it holds fast the people and citizen of a nation together. He also praised his language and aroused the patriotic feelings among the students and villagers. When he said that their language is most beautiful one, that feeling of patriotism, patriotic feeling is aroused. He tried to arouse these feelings in the students and villagers. That the France was very attentive and understood everything that is being taught by M. Hamel. And even M. Hamel was with great patience and wanted to give them everything in one go. Let's go to the next part. After the grammar lesson, we had the lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand. France, Alsace, France, Alsace. See, the teacher was very careful to instill the feeling of patriotism among the children and the villagers that day. For everybody, now writing lesson started, and for everybody, new copies is there. And uh, in each copy, he had written with his beautiful handwriting, round hand, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. As if he wanted to show the connection between the France and Alsace. Alsace is Alsace is the part of France, and it cannot be separated. They are together. So this bond he wanted to show to the children and the villagers. He wanted to give this message. Though the Persians have occupied now Alsace district, but they cannot separate it from the France. So that is why on the copies he has written with a beautiful round handwriting, France Alsace, France Alsace. They look like little flags. See the narration. This writing, no, they look like this. The books also. They were looking like the flags floating everywhere in the school room, hung from the rod of the top of our desk. So this entire narration gives the flavor of patriotism. Flag, France, Alsace. So see the next part. You ought to have seen everyone set to work and how quiet it was. Now everybody started writing. It was writing this. So how quiet it was, without making any noise that day. Everybody was now set to work, engaged in work, engrossed in their writing. The only sound was the scratching of pens over the paper. That was the only sound that was coming. The only sound. And what was that sound? Scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid attention to them, not even the littlest ones, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks. As if that was French too. On the roof, the pigeons stood very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? My dear students, this is the most thought-provoking line of the story that makes us think that everybody, you know, thinks about it. Will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? The students, the pigeons were there on the roof. They were cooing in very low, and Franz thought to himself that can these Persians make these pigeons also to sing in German? As they were forcing these Alsace people and children to use German instead of France. Can they force pigeons also? What does it suggest, children? What is it suggest? It suggests that no, cooing is very natural to the pigeon. Natural, sound. Pigeon coos, isn't it? So, as pigeon coos, our mother tongue we speak, isn't it? We speak Marathi language. Somebody speaks Hindi language as their mother tongue. Somebody speaks other language as their mother tongue. And their mother tongue is as natural as cooing of the pigeons. Okay, we need not to take efforts to speak our own language, as it happens with the foreign languages. Very naturally and spontaneously it comes. And another thing that we cannot unlearn our mother tongue. We can never forget the language that we have learned as mother tongue. Can we unlearn it? Can we forget it? Does it happen that suppose we have got out of practice and we are not able to speak our own language? No, never. Till we die, we can speak it very easily. So here, France is giving the idea to think. This is a very great slap over those people who favors, who implement, who are enforcing the linguistic chauvinism in the system. They are very rigid and fundamental about using the language. So a slap do the linguistic chauvinism. We cannot impose our language to others. We cannot others to unlearn their language like this here in this situation. In between, he talks of the Beatles. They flew in, and nobody paid attention to them. Not even the littlest one, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks, as if that was French too. As if that was French too. Who worked right on tracing their fish hooks. Who was working right on tracing their fish hooks? Here, children, it refers to the pigeons on the roof who were scratching, who were, working with their feet, and they were scratching the floor, scratching the roof, and that seems like they were pressing their fish hooks. And when the beetle comes, generally these pigeons, they eat the beetles, but they didn't mind it when the beetle comes, and they did not pay any attention. They didn't want to disturb the atmosphere, the serious and solemn atmosphere of the working now. Writing lesson was going on. So even the littlest pigeon also did not pay attention to the beetles that flew in, as if they were French too. See the flavor of patriotism. This entire paragraph, this entire section of the story speaks of patriotism, brings us the feeling of patriotism when we read it. So, very beautiful, thought-provoking line. Will they make them sing in German, even the teachers? Not possible. Though they impose German language in the schools, it cannot happen that these children plans things like this. These children may unlearn their own language, forget French language. Okay, they may learn German, but they cannot unlearn French one. They cannot, you know, forget their love towards French language. Let us move towards the next part. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamill sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. See the sentence. When it was the writing lesson going on, and when he saw M. Hamill, everybody was writing, and what M. Hamill was doing, he was sitting there motionless, without any movement, and gazing at the things one after one, one after one, as if he wanted to fix everything in his mind. For some time, he's looking towards one thing, for some time, he's looking towards another thing, as if he wanted to store these pictures, these things in his mind permanently. And why, children? Why? Yes, because tomorrow he may not see all these things. Tomorrow he has to leave this country. Tomorrow he has to leave his school, his home, his village, his motherland. Fancy. See the next part. Fancy. And imagine it. For 40 years, he had been there in the same place. Maybe M. Hamill is of his 40 years. And for 40 years he had been living there in the same place with his garden outside the window. There is a garden he has, met, cultivated outside his school, outside his home, and his class in front of him, just like that. His school He was teaching 40 years in his school. So how he could forget it? How he could leave it? How one could leave a place where he lived for 40 years nearly? And how bad, how sad it was if somebody had to live like this. Only the desk and benches had one smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hop vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. Little changes. The same thing. The trees, they grew up. The vines, they climbed and grew to taller one. They twined to the windows. The benches and desk, they were born because of use. Otherwise, everything was same. And once you lived in a place for a long time, you get a very strong attachment to it. See, children, now in Navodaya, you had come in the sixth class. Now it is you are 12th class, and this year you are going to live. And for this 6 to 7 years you had been here, and I don't think that you will forget this place, and I don't think that you will you know feel nothing when you will leave this place, even if it is not your home. Instead, somebody will call it home. So that will be a great trouble. That will be you will be moved. You will be emotional when you will leave this place. So for the person like M. Hamel, who is exiled from this place, from his home, from his school, how bad he must be feeling. His heart may be broken. His heart, may be broken bad. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. Franz narrates. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. To hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. So, when he heard the sound of packing the trunks by his sister, just upstairs his sister was there. M. Hamel's sister was there, and she was packing because tomorrow they have to leave. So he realized when he heard the sound that tomorrow he had to leave these things, and how bad his, he must be feeling, how badly his heart must be broken by leaving all these things after 40 years service, after 40 years leaving and stay there. So in this paragraph we are seeing the heartbroken M. Hamel, and he realized that he must leave his own motherland, this place where he lived nearly 40 years. He was gazing all the things as if he wanted to fix everything in his mind, as if he wanted to store all these pictures in his mind, all these places in his mind, because he was so much attached to his home, his school, his garden, his classroom, and everything. So let us move towards the next para. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. Dear students, uh, this line he is not talking about the lessons that we have in the books. It is talking about the lessons of life. Now, M. Hamel had to leave this place. M. Hamel had to leave this school. M. Hamel had to leave this motherland. And this is a great lesson to M. Hamel, the lesson of life. And very boldly and with great courage, he had to hear this lesson. He has to face this lesson. So he did not, got frightened. He did not give up. He did not lose his heart. With great courage, he is also learning. He is, bearing this bitter lesson of the life also to the very last. So he could be described as composed and resilient. Resilient means who is having the ability to bear the pain, to tolerate the bitter experience, to tolerate the troubles of life. Resilient capacity to bear the pain. So he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, be, bo, bi, bo, boo. So this is the lesson of phonetics. So grammar lesson, writing lesson, history lesson, now phonetics. So lessons after lesson continuously. M. Hamel is teaching. Down there, at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands. Spelling the letters with them, you could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotions, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well it remember it. I remember it, the last lesson. See the children, see the children. This was a very, very memorable lesson. Unforgettable, the last lesson. And the narrator, Franz, is saying, this was unforgettable. And in this last lesson, when they started, the lesson of phonetics, the older people, elder villagers, they are coming. They were also chanting the sounds, ba, be, boo, boo. It looks funny to hear the elders chanting like children. Actually, it looks very funny, and we feel to laugh. But the situation is so bad, so sad, so sentimental that even they cannot laugh, though it seems true. Instead, while chanting the phonetics, their voice trembles with the emotions. Everybody was crying. May not be the literally crying, tearing out their eyes, but inside, emotionally, they were everybody crying. And some few of the people like Hauser, they were crying, and their voice trembles with the emotions. So very, very emotional scene. Um, Dear children, we'll stop here for today. Before finishing it, let us revise what we have learned today. Today we have learned that when the turn of M. Hamel comes to decide the participles, he could not, and he felt very bad. Uh, but M. Hamel did not scold him. M. Hamel did not even blame him. Instead, he has taken the blame to himself. Instead, he blamed everybody that everybody was responsible. Everybody was at fault. Everybody was at blame. Uh, to the day that day, that's it. The day comes when they have to put off their learning. So everybody has to great deal to reproach with. Later, he speaks of the parents and himself that how they were not anxious to their children to learn. That sometimes he himself has to go for fishing, and he has given holidays. His teachers, he has to, he has given us students to water his garden. Even the parents, they have taken their children to the mills and the farms, and they did not send them into the school. So everybody has blame. And later, he has also spoken about the language and aroused the feeling of patriotism among them by saying that their language is most beautiful in the world, clearest one, logical one, and not only that. he has given the new copies to the children uh, with the beautiful handwriting, writing France Alsace, as if he wanted to suggest that Alsace cannot be separated from France. Alsace is a part of France forever. So these, uh, and these make them things, or these make the people patriotic, and the notebooks, they look like flags, it said. So that is also that also arouses the feeling of patriotism in the mind of the people. Even he said that pigeons, they seems like the French, as if they were French. And he also put one of the most thought-provoking question in the story, that will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? So he wanted to suggest that French language to the Alsace people is like going to the pigeons, very natural, and they cannot unlearn it. Uh, so in the next part, we have also seen that young Hamel's heart was completely broken. He was very sad. He was gazing all the things one by one and wanted to fix everything in his mind. But he realized that he had to leave tomorrow after his 40 years service. So here, and after that, he continues his lessons, uh, his history lessons, his phonetic lessons. While going on the phonetic lessons, the funny crying and funny chanting of the elders, but though it was funny, uh, their voice was trembled with emotion. They were crying at the same time, crying very badly, and the entire lesson that day they had, that was unforgettable, that was immemorable, France says. Today we'll stop here and take down your assignment, today's homework, and you submit it on Google Classroom app. And do not forget to like my lesson on YouTube channel. So take down your assignment. Thank you. See you tomorrow.